Welcome, everybody, to Crossing the Line with Greg Heym, the top-rated podcast with Greg Heym on it.
It's a fact.
How many others are there? I don't even know.
Gotta look it up.
No, we love doing the show, and we love doing the show with Scott Nadler, my buddy from CrossCountry Mortgage, who got a haircut this weekend.
I did get a haircut. They went a little short, but
at your age, you don't have to worry about that. My age, it's going to look short no matter how much they cut it because it's all going bye-bye.
I have a thing with haircuts, though, because I used to have a barber in my early 20s, this Russian guy named Alex, who was phenomenal, and he would cut my hair, and we'd always compliment what he was doing as he was doing it. I wasn't sure if he was complimenting me or he was complimenting himself, like admiring,
Did he need that
his
kind of
own
reassurance?
work. I think he may have.
Because I do that when I'm writing reports. I'm like, Greg, this is great.
Yeah, so that's exactly how he used to cut my hair. And then the first time he's like, "Do you like it?" I said, "Yeah, it's great." And he said, "That's because I'm a lefty. You need to get your hair cut done by a left-handed person." And I know that's the most irrational thing. But from that point forward, I'm like, I guess I can't get a haircut from someone that's right-handed. It's got to be a left-handed person. That's what my Russian barber told me.
Now, I am left-handed, well, at least from a sports point of view. I do most things right-handed, so people say I'm not a real lefty. But we're supposed to be special. There's only 10% of us are lefty.
Exactly. So you believe this guy?
Maybe.
You believe it?
I don't know. Look, we were talking before we hit record. We're talking about the Beatles.
Yeah.
Ringo's lefty. That they say that may have helped with his drumming technique.
There you go.
I don't know. Jimi Hendrix.
Maybe there's something to it. Okay.
I don't know.
From a sports perspective, you're right. I mean, whenever you see, I have friends with young kids, and when we see the young kids who are lefties and they're playing sports, like, oh, it could be a nice little golf swing there.
Well, it's interesting because you go to baseball, the majority of people are batting righty, right? But then you watch hockey, the majority of the players are shooting lefty. Because in hockey, it's that strong hand you want on the top of the stick. People think it's the bottom hand that gives you the speed. No, it's the torque you create there.
Gotcha.
Anyhow, today's April 7th. This is great. You want to talk about 2 days that were perfect for each other. It's National Beer Day, and it's National No Housework Day. So talk about two holidays that were just meant to be.
Yes.
Now, if it was National Wine Day, too, then you'd get the ladies more involved, maybe, and no one would be doing anything.
The trifecta. It'd be a national holiday.
Unfortunately, it's not National No Podcast Day. This is maybe a week we want to skip. I don't know.
We show up.
Yes, we did show up. So you got your hair cut this weekend. Anything else exciting happened?
We were just talking about this. It was a very busy weekend. I had a lot of overlapping.
When does this guy not have a busy weekend?
It was just a lot of overlapping parties and events and whatnot. And
rich
it was just
apartments, like hanging out with
it was there was a
people.
lot going on. But I wanted to ask you, because I was having a conversation with a couple of friends of mine, the Irish exit.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you and your wife go to a party? You're done. You're ready to go. Are you saying goodbye? Because we have people that will walk out of the party, and we have some people who will say goodbye without leaving, and they'll start. And then you're looking across. Didn't you say goodbye to me like 45 minutes ago? And they're still at the party.
If I'm with my wife, I can't do an Irish exit. She's too nice.
Yeah.
You literally have to say goodbye to everybody, and that will take.
That's the Italian exit.
Is that what you say? Italian exit.
You say goodbye to everyone.
So we have Italian exit. What about German exits? Do you bang tables on the way out? My heritage. No, I don't have a problem sometimes just fading out. Like, I'm going to the men's room. I'll be right back. Right. And then where's Greg? He's gone.
Yeah. And you could send the text later the next day.
That's the Neil Young exit.
That's it. Yeah. Is that his career gone? He said, I'm going to disappear for 30 years and then I'm going to make this grunge anthem and then I'm going to disappear again. So that's it. It's an interesting topic. I don't go to bars really anymore. That's the thing. Parties, no.
You just skip them.
My son makes such a big deal of this. He's like, oh, we're never getting out of here. Mommy's talking to so-and-so. I'm like, you're right. We should just leave.
Yeah.
Leave her here. She'll get a ride.
You need 2 cars.
Yeah, well, it could be. But then again, that could lead to a divorce. I mean, two of everything we'll need. One of the big stories of the weekend happened yesterday. Alex Ovechkin set the all-time goal-scoring record in the NHL. And the best part about it, he did it against the Islanders. And that's, it's really amazing because no one ever would have thought that Gretzky's record was going to be broken. Because Gretzky played in a much higher scoring era. And, he really that was kind of like Babe Ruth. They probably thought Babe Ruth's home run record was never going to be.
Right.
But Ovi, we thought he was done like last year. And again, he's got 40-something goals this year again. And
Very
the guy
impressive.
plays the right way. He was very respectful, has a lot of fun when he's playing. His kids were adorable. They were there. And again, they did it against the Islanders at UBS Arena. So that makes it even more enjoyable for me. And Gretzky came out to congratulate him. And he said, I'm glad the Islanders don't play in the Nassau Coliseum anymore. I lost a lot of games there. Most famously when the Islanders swept them in the Stanley Cup the first year. But they got their revenge the next year.
For all the Islander fans out there, you can email Greg.
Go for it.
Directly.
Bring it on. You ain't making the playoffs any more than the Rangers are. I wouldn't worry about it at this point. I never forgive Islander fans for growing up a Ranger fan in Long Island in the 80s. It was terrible. Anyhow, well, we're here.
Tell us how you really feel, Greg.
I just did. Very succinct and, dare I say, economical. All right, so
Look at this. This is a pro right here.
we're here in beautiful Studio 1873. But before we start having more fun, somebody's got a message for us.
Your dream home is closer than you think. I'm Scott Nadler, VP of Mortgage Lending at CrossCountry Mortgage, and I'm here to get you the perfect loan to match your perfect home. From first-time home buyers to seasoned homeowners, I've helped clients make their moves with confidence. Ready for a smooth, stress-free home buying experience? Let's get you moving today. Call me and let's turn those dreams into keys.
Okay, we're back. So let's start with the good news.
If only there was news that we could talk about.
Nothing happened last week.
Nothing.
Nothing
Yeah.
at all. So Friday, the jobs report came out. And this was kind of important because there's a lot of concern about recession talk, obviously with the trade war going on and everything else. People like me thought there might be some massive revisions to prior months. There weren't really. So employment up by 228,000 last month, crushing the Dow Jones estimate of 140,000. So right then and there, that's good news.
Yes.
But, people like me, economists in general, got to try to spoil it. Like, what can we find in here that says it's not that good? And it didn't really happen.
Mm-hmm.
The
Hours worked, maybe?
household numbers showed similar data, which, when they're both in sync, you got to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
The unemployment rate ticked up to 4.2. Big deal. That's because the labor force participation rate went up. And again, that's sometimes a positive sign. More people entering the labor force, maybe they're more optimistic about getting a job.
Right.
Or maybe their portfolios, weren't looking so good, so they had to get back into the workforce. So the federal employment in March just declined by just 4,000 jobs. And in February, it was 11,000. You go, wait, I thought a lot more. Well, they're not in here. The BLS put this in the report. It's because if you're getting severance pay, you're counted as employed. You're being paid.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not you're working is apparently irrelevant. So, I signed up for that deal.
Mm-hmm.
Only I need mine to go on a little longer than the 8 months they got. The downward revisions to January and February were not extraordinarily large, 48,000. Wages up 0.3% in March and 3.8% higher than a year ago. That was pretty much in line with forecasts.
The only thing I saw that I didn't love was the majority of jobs that were created were in the age range of 20 to 24-year-olds. And those over 50. And I'm sorry, over 54. And then I think between the 25 to 54-year-old range, which is your prime money-making years, there were job losses. That was the only thing where that's something that I think we'll have to pay attention to.
It could be a shift. It's something that happens in certain industries, even though they don't come out and say it. You're lowering your labor costs.
Right.
And that's good. Now, as somebody that's over 50, you're scaring me, but I'll get over it.
Well, what they didn't say in the report is 50's the new 40. So
That's not
they
the
need
way
to
I
take,
feel
they need to
about
take
it.
that into account.
I feel a lot older than 50. Labor market looking good.
Mhm.
What's the problem? Good job growth, good wage growth.
Yeah.
Low unemployment. So we have a lot of other data that came out last week, and that relates to the labor market. Initial claims fell again, 219,000. That's incredibly low historically, much lower than the average, which is in the 300,000s. We got the JOLTS data, which trails. It's basically, about a month behind.
And that was good.
7.6 million.
Yep.
Slight decline. That's still numbers we never saw before the pandemic.
Yep.
So that's good. There was, that's sort of what we call the hard data. The data that's there. We know, we counted it. Maybe it's revised, but it happened. And one of the things we keep hearing is the soft data is showing us, the signs for concern. Stuff based on sentiment or things that may happen but haven't happened yet. Expression, right? The past is history, the future is a mystery, today's a gift. That's why they call it the present. When we get to the next section, you may not think today feels like a present, but the aptly named challenger, Gray, and Christmas, because they track layoffs, and is there a better thing associated with layoffs than Christmas? Because that's when a lot of them happen. The number of layoffs announced in March was the highest level since the pandemic. So that's enough to scare you pretty bad, especially from a guy named Christmas.
Yes.
Supposed to be like,
It softens the blow a little bit.
Maybe. Well, you start off like Challenger, Gray, and Christmas.
Right.
It just, so that's scary. A lot of announcements. A lot of that is federal government. That hasn't happened yet necessarily. And also consumer sentiment. We've talked about this. If consumers get pessimistic on the economy, a recession is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy because their spending is what drives 70% of GDP.
Right. And
2/3 of the respondents in the latest consumer sentiment poll expect higher unemployment in the next year. Now you'd say, okay, higher than 4.2. All right. Like, what do you think? But they don't get that granular. So what do we believe, Scott Nadler? Do we go with the hard data of the past or this data that's telling us the future doesn't look so bright and we don't have to wear shades? To paraphrase Timbuktu. Timbuktu? Yeah, that was the band in the 80s. Ray, if you don't know this, I'm not going to know this. I thought that was...
Too young in the 80s.
No, you weren't. You're my age, Ray. Well, I won't say if you're older or younger than mine, because that would be, inappropriate. But you're my age almost. So what do you think?
It goes back to a lot of what we've been talking about as far as what lens of the economy are you looking through. I think with a lot of this stuff, and we're going to get into a lot of this also, is time will tell. Yeah. We're going to see. And a lot of the underlying fundamentals do not look great. So a lot of the soft data and it seems to be what the market is focusing on now. But again, time will ultimately tell. There's a lot happening and a lot of unintended consequences that can happen one way or another. And I know we're going to get to like the overall sentiment of what's happening, but I think we're still sort of in this wait and see mode.
Yeah, it's kind of thing where, you can't say we're definitely going into recession because the unemployment rate is still low, hiring is still pretty brisk. The future could turn out differently, as we found out who saw what's going on now happening a month ago.
Right.
So, but again, we can't rule it out.
Right.
So, as I said in my blog, welcome to my world. It could happen. It could not happen. What, do you expect me to know? And they're like, yeah, we do. That's what you get paid for. And you're like, oh, no. I'll get back to you when I figure it out.
It's a tough job, Greg, but someone's got to do it.
Well,
and they trusted you.
No one else applied because how many economists have you actually even met in your life? People go, oh, you're my favorite economist. Like, how many others do you know?
Yeah.
You only need to know one economist,
yeah.
Let's be honest. But I'm the one, Lena. Don't laugh. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Greg's number one. So there was one good thing, that happened Friday with all the craziness. 10-year Treasury rate dipped below 4%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, what really has the most impact on mortgage rates.
My phone was ringing. Emails are piling up.
Are your ears ringing now, even though you don't have your phone on?
I still feel it.
Feel like people need to reach me?
The vibrations. Yeah, for sure.
Good vibrations.
Good vibrations. Exactly.
Well, and so this begs a question, and there's probably a lot of angry people going, Greg, you say better than expected hiring data stokes inflation. So why did the 10-year go down? Well, I have a simple answer for that. people are more worried about recession than they are about inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation all of a sudden is like, what? No, that's so like the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
We're going to go with the recession now.
Exactly. What is the market focusing on?
Because recession will take care of the inflation at some point. So to sum up, jobs report was good news. And we really needed some good news because it's been kind of brutal. 5% negative days in stocks, each day is not fun to talk about. A lot of this excitement got drained out, not just by how crazy stocks went, but by China's announcement of a 34% retaliatory tariff on all goods imported from the U.S. That didn't go over well.
They didn't wait long.
Expect it to. And, the pessimism and the recession talk, you're seeing Wall Street banks now raising their odds of recessions is up to 60% now. That's a little concerning. But just remember, it wasn't too long that foolish economists like myself were expecting a recession.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we all underestimated the resiliency of the American consumer, who just keeps finding new ways to come up with money. And we talked last week about the cash out refis. Maybe that's the latest trick.
Yeah, but going back to the market itself, it was such a monumental couple days where you're seeing this historic drop in the market and everyone is panicking. And again, my phone is ringing like crazy. I'm getting text messages from clients with a 3.5% interest rate that are calling and saying, is now a good time? Should we be talking about
Do you need the
things?
money now? It's a good time. That's how people, is now a good time to buy a house? Do you need a house?
Right.
That's the best time.
Right. But with a lot of this stuff, and when you look at people like a Warren Buffett who really are calm in situations like this, and they buy whatever
you have billions of dollars.
You have billions of dollars, but
too.
Still having that mindset. It wasn't too long ago that we were in COVID times, and if you look at from, I think it was February 19th to March 23rd of 2020, the market dropped 34%, and we were all panicking. And I remember I have a colleague of mine who sold everything he had. Everything in the market, he sold everything. Liquidated, he was like, I'm out of the market. By August of 2020, so that's 5 months, it all recovered.
Well,
and then we had this run.
It was even sooner than that, I think. And
But
you
like,
would have
I think
thought
it was-
after Lehman Brothers, people would have learned, don't lock in a 30 or 40% loss. Someone had asked me for advice, and I told them to fire their financial planner because they should never have been in stocks at their age to that level.
And we're not advising. I'm not a financial advisor.
it's
I'm not
not
a
that.
wealth manager. But past performance is not indicative of future results, of course. But we need to look at
You just need to know
history,
the
even recent history,
ramifications.
and understand that a lot of this stuff takes time. And I know we're going to go into more specifics of it. But I think it's important for everyone to pump the brakes a little bit and just let's see how things unfold.
We don't pump the brakes on Teslas, by the way. We just take
That's
our foot
true.
off
You
the
take your
gas.
foot off the gas. Yeah.
All right, before we go on to some more fun and happy subjects, we need to take another break right now to get ourselves in the right frame of mind.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Hey, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. As an official moving partner of Brown Harris Stevens, we know that your clients deserve more than just a move. At Roadway Moving and Storage, we turn moving into an experience they will love. From specialized services to a white glove treatment, we've got it all covered. When you choose Roadway, you're choosing a peace of mind for your clients. Plus, our referral program is the most rewarding in the industry. Want to learn more? Shoot me an email at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, we're back. We talked about trade war. Last week, the administration had its list of reciprocal tariff rates for more than 180 countries, some of which
Liberation Day.
I'd never heard of. I'll be honest to you, no idea where these countries are. I guess what surprised me and a lot of people, we thought reciprocal, you tariff me 25%, you're getting it right back. That's not the way these were calculated. So I'm not going to get into too much math, but basically it looked at the trade deficit or surplus with that country and then divided by their exports. divide, the trade deficit or surplus by the amount of exports to the U.S. from that country,
Right.
and then divide that by 2. And that gave you, the numbers. It was a minimum of 10%. So if we had a trade surplus with that country, you're still going to get a tariff, which also doesn't sound like reciprocal to a lot of people. And that certainly makes sense to me.
Yep.
Obviously, it didn't go over well.
You think?
It did not go over well. The sheer magnitude and all of the different poster things of it was kind of a lot to take in. So, and the S&P 500 loses 10% in just 2 days. And then you start to think about COVID or Lehman Brothers, or I remember the day that the stimulus didn't pass after Lehman Brothers. I remember watching the vote on TV and just watching the Dow just go boom, 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 down. You start to think about some of the worst days in market history, and the tariffs haven't taken effect yet. And so there's a lot of talk going around about this, and again, this has helped bring mortgage rates down. That are they doing this on purpose? That was a question that was asked to the chief economic advisor to the administration, and he said no. I guess take him at his word. But, the question is, well, wait, how would that logic even work, though? Why would something so bad have positive consequences? So we're not endorsing any of this. We're just trying to lay out where that thinking comes from. Because if any of you are on social media, you've probably seen a video that goes through a lot of these, maybe intended consequences. I can't say unintended, right? Because the whole point would be you're doing this for a specific reason, and there's an ends to the means. So you start a trade war, stocks tank. That's something. I mean, the good news is if the tariffs get rescinded, we make deals, everybody's happy, it goes away. I don't know if stocks will go right back up, but they will start to turn around pretty quickly. We saw that after COVID, became a little more contained. I think, in my experience, markets tend to overreact a little bit. I always say they're either way too happy or way too mad.
And when it comes to interest rates, mortgage rates, we've talked about this. Rates go down slowly and they rise quickly. So if you see a reversal to the tariffs and you see a stock market change, you'll see mortgage rates start to tick up a little bit. So people who are anticipating rates to just plummet, again, we're still in this wait and see mode. But if you see the administration back off of some of the tariffs, then you could see mortgage rates either stabilize a little bit or maybe even tick up.
Well, the unknown there is the recession factor.
Correct.
Right. If you start to see the stock market really post some really bad days, then the recession talk would intensify. I've already seen J.P. Morgan Chase was most prominent last week, raising their odds of recession to 60%. So if that were true and everybody thought a recession was coming, long-term rates would go down, which we've already seen. And the Fed might feel the pressure to cut short-term rates, something that, based on the inflation data, you wouldn't want them to do.
Right.
But, knowing that a recession is going to help take care of the inflation problem. And again, the odds of this all lining up, this is almost like a James Bond villain plan, that this is going to happen, I'm going to do this, and these are all going to fall into place. We're not.
And it's really incredible how quickly things do change, because I think it was even a month ago that the market was pricing in 0 rate hikes at all.
Rate cuts,
sorry.
Yeah, because inflation was going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden they're thinking 4 to 5. So it's amazing how within a 30-day period things flip.
And
quickly.
getting the 10-year down helps people that want to call you up and borrow or refinance.
Not to mention the government needing to refinance, right? There's $6 trillion of debt that they have coming due within 9 months. So there's got to be a way to pay for that. Now, they can print more money to pay for that, but we saw what that did.
Yeah, it causes inflation.
It causes inflation.
This is the thing about tariffs and inflation. Now, I've been saying for a long time that tariffs don't by themselves cause inflation. It only might make the price of that good go up, but we only have a finite amount of money to spend. But now you see if you try to initiate 180 tariffs in one day or announce them, then you're not going to get inflation because you're going to expect the economy to really slow down as this all gets worked out.
Right.
But knowing governments and the way they work, if they refinance and save themselves money, they're going to spend it.
Correct.
Maybe on tax cuts, maybe on who knows what else. So that's part of it. And the other thing is, tariffs can incentivize companies to make more things here. Certainly, we've heard a bunch of announcements, and that's good, and that should help. Does that balance off the pain that's been caused so far? I don't think just yet, but time will tell.
Not to mention from a housing perspective, and a lot of this was buried in like the 14th or 15th paragraph of certain articles, but they didn't impose a tariff on, I think it was Canadian lumber. So if you're a home builder and you're building and you're not going to be taxed on those materials, that's a good thing from a home builder perspective.
And there, the first time this administration was in office, there was a lot of exemptions to the tariffs. And they've been saying all along, they don't expect that to happen.
Right.
But, you get more, not just foreign companies, but American companies to build more stuff here and sell more stuff here. And then the price of everything, even food, could go down.
Right.
Because we obviously export a lot of food. So there's a lot of
unknowns, though.
There's a lot of unknowns. And we're not saying that this is all going to happen, but I think this is a lot of the logic that goes into people saying, well, maybe it's intentional by that. Because you'd say, well, and anything you want to do that's big, creating a trade, dealing with that, if you think that it's an unfair playing field, or let's say you decide we got to get this budget deficit down, and we have to get the national debt down. That would be incredibly painful,
right,
to try to even get a little bit of it down,
right?
Because you'd have to cut spending, you'd have to raise taxes, and that would have consequences on the economy. So
gas prices are also, I think, WTI was trading at its lowest level in 4 years, which was an encouraging thing.
I mean, you start seeing $50 a barrel, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
And some of this oil.
There was an amazing stat also that we were talking about earlier. In the summer of 2024, we saw the highest number of Americans taking vacations in Europe.
That's because Scott Nadler was
Ever.
there every weekend. That's why.
That is not true.
It was every other weekend, sorry.
That's more accurate. In that same summer of 2024, we saw the highest number of Americans visiting food banks. So those two things happened in the summer of 2024. And when they dig into this and they see who was visiting these food banks and why was the number increasing, it's these families that were going to the supermarket to buy groceries for their family, and they'd spend the same $100, but they'd be 5 or 6 items short. So to make up for that, they'd go to a food bank. And so that's hurting everyday people. So a lot of this is to help that. That's the intention. We'll see if it can actually happen.
Well, on that note, I don't know if it's almost leveled off.
Neutral.
We're going to take our final break and then have our final thoughts.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
All right, and we're back for our final segment. So I guess that we have a couple things to watch. Now, we heard this morning that 50 of the countries on the list, so to speak, want to talk about these tariffs and what they can do to get off the list.
And we know most of them.
And that would be good if this stuff could be resolved. Again, I think like with COVID, you'll see things get back to decent levels. You'll see stocks recuperate a lot of the losses fairly quick. And I think that would be good. You know, this is why people always say, like, there's a sale on Wall Street right now. You going to buy? Because, you know, I could understand why you may not want to because maybe, you know, suffered enough. But I think that this can't go on forever. This uncertainty, the nastiness, you know, the we're not going to give in and everything. It's a lot of public negotiation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It certainly is.
And that's not great. And it's funny because they say they're talking to each other, but then they go on TV and it's like, doesn't sound like they're talking to each other.
It's a game, you know, who is going to bite first?
I guess it's some kind of poker that unfortunately or a chess game that we feel like we're the pawns in.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you talked about more people going to food banks. You know, food prices have, like virtually everything we buy, nothing's come down in price.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen oil go down, energy prices have gone down through certain periods. But, you know, everybody, things that I don't buy often, when I look at what they cost now, I can't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like groceries.
Yeah.
I usually don't do the food shopping, but when I do go, I'm like, what? Really? Maybe I shouldn't yell, you know, at how much my wife spends at the supermarket because I have no idea what's going on over there.
Right.
So I think
we should do a test. We should get, you know, regular items and see if you can.
No, I'd fail. I'd admit I'd
the
fail.
Price is Right kind of style.
No, it just went. I could tell you what guitars go for.
Price is Right with Greg Heym.
I don't want to go over because then I don't win the showcase.
No, you don't. You got
actually
$1
for the American consumer. The price has been wrong.
Yes,
the whole time. I mean, everything that I buy, tickets to sporting events and concerts are insane. The fees have become insane.
Oh, you're sitting in a box. You're sitting front row. Yeah, the price.
No, that's where you sit. I don't sit. I don't have Lone Daddy seats. I you know, you gave us a hat. That was nice. What else? What other swag are we getting?
It's coming. It's on back order.
Because the NBA playoffs are right around the corner.
Yeah.
Okay. Brunson's back. Things are looking good. So I mean, the American consumer, how many hits to the body can they take? You know, runaway inflation. Wages have been outpacing inflation lately, but much like inflation, we'd like to see that start to come down. It's not, but wage growth is slowing a little bit.
Do you take any solace in the sense of, and we were talking about this also, in terms of when you're on a flight and a pilot gives you the heads up that there's going to be turbulence ahead, and then there is, you're not panicking nearly as much as if they didn't warn you at all, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there and like, what's happening here? So I feel like we were told ahead of time there's going to be some pain ahead with what we want to do. It's coming. They're giving you the heads up. So how do you interpret that?
I think there's two problems with that. One, a lot of people would say we didn't realize it was going to be this bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like some pain might be like a total of 5 to 10%.
Right. Our luggage is falling off from the top,
luggage
and
is
we're
in
falling out of our seats.
Boise, and it didn't get to the airport we were going to. I think like my son, like his senior year of high school does not seem to be very difficult. And he's taking these college credit courses. And I don't see him studying, and his grades are great. High honor roll. And I keep telling him, college is not going to be like this.
Yeah.
And college is a very rude awakening because you might only take 1 or 2 tests a whole semester. And you bomb one of them, that's it, you know. And he goes, I know, Dad. I'm like, you don't. You're acting. You can't know. And I think that's part of it. You know, if you could say there's turbulence on a flight, okay, I've heard of turbulence. I know what it is. The plane's going to go up and down. Maybe people are going to get a little nauseous. This is why I'm always taking the Dramamine. Reminds me of a terrible experience. The first time my son got airsick, he had flown since he was like 6 months old. We had a flight, and they didn't tell us it was going to be turbulence, and it was awful, like drink coming out of the cup, going back in the cup, kind of stuff. And my son got airsick for the first time and had a full-blown panic attack.
Wow.
And then for the next couple of years, it was hard for him to fly because he'd start getting nauseous before we even sat in our seats. Mm-hmm. Now to his credit, he's better. He's fine on a plane. He's flown to Europe without us. I think he does better when he's not with his parents on these planes, especially with my wife going, are you okay, Gregory? Are you okay?
Right.
So to answer your question, it's like, well, anytime you're going to do something bold or make a big change, there are consequences. Mm-hmm. And in the economy, things shift. You know, we don't need buggy whips anymore. You know, the things like that. Yeah. It's things change. the jobs disappear, they get outsourced, or they get, I guess the thing everybody's worried about now is AI taking everybody's job. But this kind of stock market correction that quickly, to the point where now you're seeing stocks essentially or sitting on the borderline of a bear market, that's frightening that quickly. And it's not something that, like, COVID happened. We didn't time COVID. We didn't start COVID. It just was thrust upon us, and it was like, boom, what are we going to do?
Right.
This is more, for lack of a better term, self-inflicted. So I don't know that it helps, but I think that people are very emotional about this because it's affecting their wealth, and that is going to affect their spending and their outlook for the future. So that's why, just like during COVID, if we could get a nice V-shaped thing going on, although we're not in recession yet, that would be good.
Yeah.
But telling someone "I told you so" isn't going to make them feel so great a lot of the times. Although when I tell my son it wouldn't be that bad, he'd be like, "You're right, Dad, it wasn't that bad." But when it was worse than expected, I heard about it. Like being a Jets fan. I warned him not to do it. He didn't listen. No. And, the Aaron Rodgers saga of the last 2 years didn't make him any more positive about it. So, look,
Is it too late for him to switch?
Well, he is going to be going to school in Buffalo, as we found out last week. And, he can go to a game or two up there. And I don't think Buffalo's going to win a Super Bowl. I think they've kind of maxed out at where they are right now.
And you'd be okay with your son switching fandom over to a divisional rival?
I would be happy if he found a team that he liked that actually won the Super Bowl. Like that, I'd be happy for him that he didn't go through the misery. When I was a little kid, I was a Raiders fan. I liked the uniforms.
They were cool.
Black and silver. Their quarterback was Ken Stabler, who was left-handed like me. I'm like, all right, I love this guy. Plus, they were like the bad boys of the league.
Yeah.
And I saw them win a couple Super Bowls, and then foolishly I said I have to root for a New York team. And like in a state of I don't know what, I said, well, the Raiders are in the AFC. I'll root for the Jets. And that was a huge mistake because the Giants have won 4 Super Bowls in that time. And I'm a Yankee fan and a Rangers fan. So I should be all about the Giants.
Yeah.
I messed up. I done messed up. Like Ron, if you know that bit.
Of course.
So I'd be fine with him. Just so he gets, like me and a Ranger fan. They've won once in 85 years.
Yeah.
What kind of life is that? It's not fun. And the Knicks twice in their existence.
Tell me about it.
This is New York. It's supposed to be the world's most famous arena. It doesn't have a lot of famous stuff going on come playoff time.
We've had some bad management for way too long.
Bad ownership.
Bad everything.
That's where it all starts.
Yes, I agree.
So anyhow,
The tide has turned, though.
we're adding this stuff so you forget all the stuff we said before this because, look, nobody knows what's going to happen. Even the people making these decisions don't necessarily know the ramifications of what they're doing because it's really unprecedented.
Look, with all the emails I was getting from people who have existing mortgages, I got a lot of people saying, I want to put my home search on hold now because of what's happening, because I don't know what's happening in the economy. That uncertainty is real. So I sympathize with a lot of people out there. I mean, it's not fun. But I think based on what we're seeing, we're still in that wait and see mode.
Well, a lot of people like me will point out stocks are on sale.
Yeah.
Now's a good time to buy them.
Yeah.
But homes are similar. Yeah. Now homes are not declining in prices. In most places, they're still going up.
And home prices do well during recessions. Also, I think the only times home prices dropped was when it was the housing crisis.
Well, you got to
housing
remember,
caused it.
The last 2 recessions we had were unprecedented. You have the Great Recession and then COVID.
Yeah.
And then before that, you have to go back to the tech bubble bursting. So I think we don't know what a regular recession feels like. We haven't had one in a very long time, 25 years roughly. So I do think, though, and I've said this before on the show, to embrace the chaos. If you're looking for a home, especially as we're right on the cusp of the spring market, which is ramping up already, but there's a lot of product. There's always product that's been sitting on too long. Sellers are going to be nervous too. If you want maximum negotiability, you buy when people aren't buying.
I was just thinking that.
And that's the only advice I have. I think there's certainly a lot of FOMO when things are going great and everything's calm. But again, when does that ever happen?
Right.
When we have 100% certainty. Other than certainty, our teams aren't going to win.
Right.
That's it. Right. So speaking of that's it, I think that's it. Did we miss anything, Scott?
Final four pick?
Well, yeah, I'm glad Duke lost because I do not like Duke. I don't have any feelings for either team. I'm still crying about St. John's.
Yeah.
Although Patino just won another award. By the way, I believe next week there's no show because I'll be in Texas. But the week after that, there's going to be a new bobblehead here. And I've already given away who it is. It's a Rick Pitino bobblehead.
Wow.
So, I'm being encouraged to get more bobbleheads, but I don't know. Times are hard. Let's try to keep it simple.
Prices of bobbleheads these days.
I mean, well, in fairness, Alfred E. Newman is not a bobblehead, but I still love it. And it was a gift, so I really enjoy it. Thank you, Ray. Because Ray's the only one I know old enough to know who Alfred E. Newman was. And you know what, Mad Magazine, if they still do anything online or anything? Because they could be having a lot of fun what's going on in the world today. Yes, I used to love the Spy vs. Spy and the fold-ins and the records. You used to have records with different endings every time you played it. It was that and Cracked were what I looked forward to. Because Crack was just a Mad ripoff, kind of like Mad TV was an SNL ripoff. Okay. All right. Anyhow,
What's a record?
What's a record? Yeah, I know it's tough. It's like saying what's a magazine.
Right.
It's all weird. And it's funny because you have a sea change in certain things in my life, but where are the flying cars? I thought we were gonna have flying cars. Yeah, they had a jetpack at the first Super Bowl. How come we don't have them? Probably because we wouldn't use them responsibly. I'd worry about Lena. You'd be going after everybody, maybe, no? It'd be
Office to office.
Well, we get up in the vents. Who knows what can happen? Anyhow, thanks again for tuning in. And thanks to Ray and Lena and the support we get from all of you. And to our sponsors, we love them all. And again, no show next week. Sorry, I will be in Texas trying to forget a lot of this stuff, but I'll still be writing reports and watching my son and his cousins wreak havoc on my brother's house. The only relaxing moment I get is when I realize it's not my house. So, he's a pediatric oncologist. He can handle stuff like this. But have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.